Our next type of oxy-organic compound is called the aldehydes. Now, aldehydes are very closely related to carboxylic acids. In fact, their common names have the same root as the common names for the carboxylic acids. They were often associated with them, and they can be created through a fairly simple chemical process, go from an aldehyde to an acid or an acid to an aldehyde, which is something that we're going to look at the very last section of the oxy-organic section. But so let's talk about what an aldehyde is defined as. Again, we get back to the carbonyl group. We had a carbonyl group with a ketone. We had a carbonyl group with carboxylic acid. And now we're going to, again, have a carbonyl group. Now, a carbonyl group is a carbon-to-oxygen double bonded structure with two attachments, usually with at least one alkyl group represented by an R. And so a lot of times, in fact all the times, the differences in what these structures are is this part right here. And so we had another alkyl group for ketones. We had an OH or hydroxyl group for the acids. And the aldehydes is just simply a hydrogen. Now, when I say this, and we're going to talk about compounds that we can make out of this, that H has to be an H. You can't replace it with like a chlorine or a fluorine or anything. It has to be just an H. Anything attached to the alkyl group can be okay, but not to this H right here. You can't put something other than an H on that carbonyl group. And we'll represent it linearly as RCHO. Now, the reason why they don't use RCOH is because then it looks like an alcohol. And so to emphasize the fact that this is an aldehyde, they'll end this with HO. All right, physical properties. Well, because of that oxygen right there, that is a polar molecule. So that means it's soluble in water up to about 6 carbons. Again, that fluctuates, but right around 6 carbons. The fact that there is no hydrogen bonding to this oxygen means that there is no hydrogen bonding involved in other molecules like this that are trying to keep together in liquid form or solid form or whatever. So that means that they are going to be loosely bonded compared to the hydrogen bonding and more strictly bonded together than the van der Waals forces of the hydrocarbons. So, in that case, since the intermolecular bonding is dipole-dipole, we're going to expect medium boiling points and freezing points. We're going to expect medium vapor pressures, and that means then if there's medium vapor pressure, when you open up a bottle of this stuff, you know right away that you have an aldehyde or something very, very wrong. It's not always the most pleasant smelling stuff, as we're about to talk about here. Uses. These are uses for aldehydes. And the big one here that most people associate with is embalming fluid. And if you've taken or are about to take anatomy, one of the things that you're going to be asked to do is dissect. And a lot of the things that they dissect are stored in embalming fluid. I think they call it formalin, which is a fancy name for a solution of one of the aldehydes that we're going to talk about. But it has other uses. And this is a really big one too in industry. In synthesis reactions and creating other compounds, this is usually a good stepping stone for it. And I'll just say very quickly, it's not going to mean too much to you right now. It might later on when we deal with the reactions here coming up pretty soon. That it can be both oxidized and reduced. And that's a big thing for compounds because they can be used in very easy ways to create other compounds through those two processes. If you see a fancy name like this that ends in "side," like homicide or genocide, it means some kind of death. And so this is used in killing germs, fungi, and insects. So germicide, fungicide, and insecticide. It's also used in making plastics, and one of the plastics that it does make is a really effective glue. They use that in plywood. It's also used as a perfume. There is a certain amount of flavoring to it. In fact, some soda pops have aldehydes as their flavoring, particularly cherry flavoring seems to be a thing.